Alright, so with that done, let's get started. Welcome back to yet another episode in our market gardening month by month series. In today's episode, I'm going to take you through a day in the life of a farmer in February. With just another month to go in winter, we are starting to see the end of the tunnel here. And I don't know about you, but me personally, I can't wait until the whole garden will be full of crops and bruising with life again. But before that happens, we still have a couple of tasks that we need to do to make sure that we're off to a good start this upcoming spring. So let's not wait any longer and let's get started. Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moreno from thedutchfarmer.com. On this channel I share my experiences with farming and show you both the production side as well as the crucially important business side of starting and running a small farm. We cover in-depth tutorials, tips, strategies and a lot more, so if this is your first time here, welcome and consider subscribing. Alright, so in the previous episode we've talked about all the things that you could be doing in January. If you haven't yet seen it, make sure to check it out. Most of the things we've discussed in that video are still valid and applicable in February. In fact, we just finished up creating a whole bunch of extra cuttings from several shrubs that we'd like to multiply here on the farm. We've just finished up planting a large amount of different flowering bulbs around the base of the trees as well as on the sides of the pathways. We figured that every space we have available here on the farm should be either planted with something productive, adds beauty and interest to the farm, or be in function to the whole system. And this year we're going to put a lot more focus into creating additional diversity on the farm. We've already planted quite some shrubs along the fence line, and we keep finding spaces where we will continue to plant herbs, shrubs, flowers and even small trees. If you haven't yet finished up your crop planting plan, now is really the last best moment to get your organization set up before you're too late. Also, make sure to tidy up the last places and give your trees a final pruning if needed. If you've planted crops to overwinter, you will still be able to get some harvest from them, if of course the weather allows it. Some of the crops that we've planted in August and September of last year are still harvestable and available for sale. Take for example the 2 beds of kale just behind me over there. This is an extremely hardy, productive and profitable crop here on our farm. In fact, it's one of the most profitable crops that we grow during these times of the year. The trick with having crops ready for sale at this time of the year is to have them reach maturity stage before October or November. Unless you're in an extremely cold climate where you would need tunnels and greenhouses for the crops, here in Zone 7B we can actually have many crops overwintering. With the use of fleeces, we can give them just a little bit of added protection from the wind and just slightly colder temperatures, which allows them to perform them a little bit better. Having said that, honestly, I'm personally not a big fan of using these fleeces. When we transition from summer to autumn and from winter to spring, we always have to deal with storms and many windy days, and since we are growing mostly below the canopy of the trees, many branches and debris falls off the trees onto the fleeces. Since they are basically as thick as toilet paper, it causes them to quickly be damaged because of this. Having said that, they can help with the season extension both in autumn as well as in late winter, early spring. Probably a better option for us for season extension under the canopy would be to create low tunnels with strong bended steel pipes covered with some rigid greenhouse plastic. We personally don't have the need to go that far, but that could be a better option for those of you looking for inexpensive season extension solutions. Here we are standing next to a couple of late seeded carrot beds, which we've sown at the end of summer last year. Since we will start seeding and planting soon, we want to clear the beds, harvest the produce and add a fresh new load of compost onto the bed so that they'll be ready for most of our spring starts. That's a really important job you can do in the winter, if obviously you have the ability to work outside. With market gardening, we are mostly working with annual plants, which I believe are third in terms of ecological succession after bare rocks on the first place, and mosses, lichen, algae and fungi second in terms of ecological succession. The third succession is the annual plants that we as small farmers are mostly working with. If we move up the ladder from there, if let alone without any human intervention, nature would go on, at least in most places of this planet, into creating a self-sustaining, self-replicating, regenerative forest-type perennial system. But in our case, in the market garden, we grow animals which have been mostly bred to extract as much energy and nutrients from the soil to grow to their full potential. Once these plants have reached their maturity, we are there to harvest them and then sell them off to our customers. So we are essentially exporting nutrients from our farm to our customers, and this means that we break this built-in closed loop system that we see in nature. The birth, death, decay cycle, or maybe better known as the circle of life. One of our jobs as annual vegetable growers is to play the role of Mother Nature and reintroduce organic matter and fertility onto our lands if we wish to continue to get predictable yields and high quality produce. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate how we are able to keep the fertility on our farm at the levels where they should be for the crops that we are growing. I'm going to harvest these 2 beds of carrots, tidy them up, apply the needed fertility and directly start seeding new crops into the beds. So let's get to it. Alright, so after harvesting all of the carrots and placing them in the post-harvest station, the next step is to then apply the annual dressing of compost of about 2 inches or 5 centimeters. We make sure to apply an equal layer over the entire bed. The compost itself that we are using at the moment is actually of pretty low quality. It is the first time that we bought it from a local green waste compost facility, and probably also the last time that we buy our compost from them. The specific compost, as you can see, is not entirely broken down yet and contains still quite some coarse organic matter. This is not going to cause many problems for us since we don't till any of this material into the soil but simply apply it onto the surface. In the upcoming months it will still continue to break down and will continue to feed the soil food web that in turn will feed the plants. Another great source of organic matter we have access to is unlimited cow manure from a local farmer. We've actually just came to an agreement with him and he is going to put all of his fresh cow manure in large piles onto one of his plots, and we're going to let it there for a full year before he will bring it onto our farm. A couple of times per year he will use an aerating machine to turn over the pile of manure to create an amazing finished end product, perfect for us to use in the market garden. We'll then apply the rotted manure mid to late autumn, and the following spring we can directly sow into it. After applying the compost, you'll inevitably end up with beds that are raised a bit. What I personally like to do at this stage is to compact the bed slightly with something called a bed roller. This is a nice little tool that helps us in the process of creating smooth and equal surfaces to plant in. For transplanted crops this is not so much of a necessity, but if say you would direct seed a bed with something like a 6-row seeder, this is a very helpful tool to create a smooth surface to seed in. Since most of the direct seeding on our farm is done with the jank seeder, which I'll show you in a second, we don't really need to use the bed roller on a consistent basis. I like to use it in this situation though, when we've just applied a new fresh layer of compost. If you want to see a full overview of all the tools you will need for a low-cost startup, make sure to check out this video. The next step, which is something we like to address in the winter period before the busy growing season, is a small application of extra wood chips in the pathways wherever it's needed. As soon as you apply wood chips, it will start to break down and will need small annual applications to keep it covered. The wood chips in the pathways are an amazing added element to the farm if you have access to it. Besides the fact that we really love the looks of it, it actually functions as an amazing sponge in cases of surplus water and can release it in moments of shortage. It also functions as a nutrient distribution center with all the fungi thriving in it, decomposing the material and bringing it to places that are in need of it. Besides that, it also suppresses weeds and provides more protection from the elements to the overall soil biology below it, and on top of that we barely get any dirty boots because of this. In fact, being able to work outside in sandals or a pair of sneakers feels much better than a pair of heavy muddy boots. Having said that, the wood chips are not a necessity and should only be used if you have access to them nearby. We get ours from a local tree cutting service. They shred up all the branches and trees they are working with, and we can either grab it at their place for free or have it delivered at a delivery cost. Because they are working with a large variety of trees, the mulch itself is not very consistent in sizes and quality, but because it's a free source, we have nothing to complain. Once we've applied the wood chips, it's time to get some seeding done. At this time of the year, it's a bit of a gamble with direct seeding. We are farming in plant hardiness zone 7B, and our last frost-free date is around the second week of May. It's been an exceptionally warm winter this year, but there is still a chance that we can get temperatures well below freezing. This could potentially wipe out entire seedings that you'll do during this time of the year. Therefore, I'm going to plant only crops that can handle light frost, and with the help of fleeces, we are able to create microclimates that are just a tiny bit warmer, but can also keep out winds and potentially hard rains. The crop we're going to plant today is Arugula. It's a crop that can handle pretty cold temperatures. It's not the most cold hardy crop out there, but it's a good performer under these circumstances. Other crops that we're going to direct seed this month include radishes, turnips, mustards, spinach, lettuces, kale, and in the high tunnel we'll also be planting beets and carrots. If you have an unheated protected nursery space like we have, you can also get started with many other brassicas like broccoli, cabbages and cauliflower, as well as plants like chards, lettuces and fennel. If you have minimum heating in a protected area with heating mats or heaters, you should definitely get some of the slower growing heat loving crops started, like eggplants and peppers. These crops really take a bit of time to get established, and February is the perfect time to do so. Last year we started every single plant that we needed for the high tunnel inside our house, so the tomatoes, peppers and eggplants. To be honest, it was quite a hassle. We converted the room we have into an indoor nursery system with heating and artificial lights. Even though this worked out really well for the plants, after doing the calculations with the amount of time that we spent tending the crops in this location, watering them, moving them around, potting them up and so forth, we've came to the conclusion that it's actually more cost effective for us to buy all of our heat loving crops. There's another small farmer not too far from here in our area who does have the right systems and equipment in place to handle large amounts of seedlings. This allows us to not have to worry about any of the heat-loving high tunnel crops, and around mid-April when we start planting them, we simply have to pick them up and we have strong, healthy and hardened off seedlings. Alright, getting back to direct seeding the arugula in the beds that we've just prepared. For this task we're going to use the Jang seeder. It's an amazing and sturdy tool that is really good in singulating single seeds without getting jammed. And the best thing about this tool is that you don't need to have a perfectly prepared bed surface. Unlike with the 6-row seeder, which is a lot more picky, this seeder functions really well in many circumstances. Before we sow a bed, we follow a couple of simple but important steps. The Jang seeder functions with a variety of rollers, or also called seeding plates. These plates come with many different hole sizes and quantity of holes, depending on the crop that you're going to grow. For arugula we use seeder plate YYJ24. We make sure to place this into the hopper, which is the case that holds the seeds. After we've installed the right roller, we always make sure to weigh the amount of seeds we sow before we start planting. This allows us to know exactly the amount of seed we use per individual bed per crop. This information is then put into a main spreadsheet with all the data we collect from the farm, including yields, DTMs and so forth. When you plant arugula, you have a couple of options in terms of density you can grow them at. And this density is going to determine what the end product and yield will look like. For example, you can grow arugula very dense with a 6-row seeder at a density of 12 rows per bed. This density is really for when you want to harvest the baby leaf of the crop. If you aim to have a bit larger leaves, you can direct seed them in 7 to 9 rows per 30-inch bed. On our farm, we like the results we get at 9 rows, so that's what we'll be planting them at. Before I start walking down the bed, I always make sure that the seeder is dropping seeds by simply turning the wheel a little. This way you'll be able to see some seeds falling out of the seeder. After we've planted the crop, we use these fleeces to give it the best possible conditions to grow in during these times of the year. We place small steel wire hoops on the beds, place the fleece on it, and with simple pegs we make sure to secure it from the wind. Again, seeding outdoors right now is a bit of a risk, but with careful selection of crops and a bit of protection, you can get a head start of the upcoming growing season. Worst case scenario for us would be if we would get a very hard frost right after the seeds have germinated. This would most likely kill all of it, and in that case we would have to reseed the bed. February and the cold and wet days of this month give us just a little bit more time to fully recharge our batteries before we get into our daily farm grind. And I don't know about you, but we are overcharged and ready for yet another beautiful and abundant season. If you like this video and want to see more like it, make sure to subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up right now. Also, if you haven't yet grabbed our free guide over at our website at thedutchfarmer.com, make sure to check it out. And as always, I wish you a very nice day and I see you in the next video.